Hi, I'm Mayor Jay Tibshraeny, and welcome to this edition of Chandler Inside and Out. Today it's my privilege and honor, and our honor, to have in studio Dr. Michael Crow, President of Arizona State University, 16th President of Arizona State University, who I've gotten to know through the years working with you when I was both in the State Senate and more recently as Mayor. But thanks for being with us today.
Happy to be here, Mayor.
We're going to first, before we delve into all the good things happening at ASU, maybe a little bit about your background. We know you came to ASU in 2002, but where were you at before that? Maybe a little bit of your background.
Well, I was, my parents were Midwesterners. They ran off as teenagers, and I was their product. Born in California, lived all over the country, ultimately ended up being a javelin thrower at Iowa State and having a great experience there as an undergraduate, graduate school at Syracuse, and then worked my way through academia sort of as a professor focused on what we call building knowledge enterprises and changing trajectories of the economic trajectory, the military trajectory, the social and cultural trajectory of places by the kinds of knowledge institutions that get constructed. Ended up at Columbia in New York City as one of the provosts there and as a professor there, and then had this fantastic opportunity to come to Arizona 13 years ago.
Yeah. Well, we're glad you came out here.
Yeah.
So it doesn't seem like it's been 13 years, does it?
Not to me. Seems like time moves very quickly, particularly as you get older.
So as you were going through that process, 13 years ago, and the ASU job came open, what were some of the things that made you think, hey, this might be a good fit for me?
I had been offered a couple of different university presidencies before ASU, and I didn't take them. And my wife Sybil was getting very upset with me. She was saying, you get all emotionally engaged in this process, and then they get all excited about you, and then you tell them no, and then it's this horrific kind of thing. And so she said, put on a list of paper the schools or the places that you would be interested in maybe being president, and then don't respond to anything except those places.
Right.
So I made a list, and I put Arizona, Colorado, and Washington were on my list. And that in Arizona, Arizona State University was the institution that I put on my list. And the job wasn't open at the time. And the reason I put Arizona, Colorado, and Washington on the list was I thought that in those three Western states, there was huge opportunity to do new things. And I ranked Arizona first because I felt that it still had a spirit of innovation, an open-mindedness to new ideas. And then the job came open, and the local leaders selected me, and since then it's been a fantastic opportunity to make things happen.
You succeeded Laddie Kerr, right?
Right.
Yeah, who had a long run at ASU.
Yeah, there's been 3 presidents of ASU since 1980, and so that's 35 years. That's an unbelievably stable evolution. Russ Nelson was the chancellor of the University of Colorado in 1980, came to ASU to get a chancellor of a great university to come at that point. That then kicked off our evolution as a research university. Laddie Kerr came in 1990, a native Arizonan who was the president of the University of Vermont, and Laddie had been one of the youngest and most capable, unbelievable leaders in higher education. He became the vice chancellor of Washington University in St. Louis, I think, when he was 27 or 28 years old. So then he came in 1990 and stayed till 2002. I became a consultant to ASU in 1991. So between 1991 and 2002, when I was appointed president, I think I was out here probably 100 different times.
Right.
And my assignment was, again, knowledge enterprise architecture oriented. It was to structure research trajectories that could make ASU one of the greatest research universities in the world as rapidly as possible. So Laddie and I worked together very closely on that. And so that stability, 35 years only having 3 people, that then helps you build a university very rapidly.
That's unusual to have that kind of stability at a university where you only have 3 leaders in 35 years, I would think.
It's very unusual. The average tenure nowadays is 6 or 7 years.
Right.
If you look back through time, Nicholas Murray Butler at Columbia University was president there from 1902 to 1945, 43 years. He ran for vice president in the 1920s. He ran the Rebuild Europe campaign after World War I while he was president. And so he's an example of a person who had some flaws, but nonetheless, he transformed Columbia College into Columbia University, and it became one of the great private research universities.
Right.
And then there's other examples through the country where UCLA had a chancellor that was there for a long time and provided this kind of stability. That's to make things work in universities. You need focused, dedicated teams to be in place for very significant periods of time.
Right. Well, I'm glad you're here. And for full disclosure to our audience, I'm a proud graduate of Arizona State University. Also, for full disclosure, though, my wife is a proud graduate of University of Arizona. So I'm glad you're
one of these
here.
Divided households.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. My daughter, we win, though. It's 2-1 because my daughter went to ASU
right.
also and graduated from ASU. So maybe before we get into the specifics of all the really good things that are happening and have happened at ASU under your watch and where we're heading into the future, maybe we talk maybe more in general about the state of education in Arizona from K-12 all the way up through the universities, or at least your take on it.
Yeah, you know, what's interesting about the state of education, so Arizona is a fast-moving, high-growth, highly diverse state. So it is, in a sense, it's the leading edge of social, cultural, economic, technological change in America. I mean, it's the leading edge of change in the United States. And so for all of the self-flagellation that we put on ourselves, beating ourselves up for our underperformance, I think that we're looking at it backwards. So among those places that are changing rapidly, so if you break California down into counties and then think of the counties as state-like creatures because of the size of California, we're performing pretty well against most of those counties. That is the state of Arizona. And so what I mean by that is that, yes, we've got underperformance, we've got low educational attainment in certain parts of our population that we've got to fix, we've got low college going rate that we've got to repair. We've got a number of things that are happening. We have seen some improvement in high school graduation rates. We're seeing dramatic improvement in college graduation rates. Chandler has a fantastic school district that is a prize of prizes. There's a number of charter schools and other alternatives that are out there that are fantastic. But most of the energy is negative and critical.
Right.
And that's really bothersome to me, because if you have negative and critical energy, you actually don't end up solving the problems. And so what we need is to, I think, set a goal. Governor Haslam in Tennessee has set a goal called Drive to 55. And this is where 90% of everybody graduates from high school. And of those that graduate from high school, really 100%. And those that graduate from high school, 50% need a post-secondary certificate for the economy of the future. So just remember, in 1900, only 8% of the population of the United States had a high school diploma.
Wow.
And a much smaller fraction had a college diploma. And educational attainment in the last 115 years have taken us from a rural, industrial, emerging economy to the leading economy on the planet. Well, if we want to stay as the leading economy on the planet, the key to that is educational attainment to higher and higher levels. Now, the Drive to 55 effort, we don't have anything like that in Arizona. That's a positive goal. Governor Abbott in Texas has a 60% goal, the same goal. 60% of high school graduates getting a post-secondary certificate. Some would get bachelor's degrees. Some would get associate degrees or technical certificates along the way. Now, what I mean by saying this is that, yes, we have challenges, and yes, we have funding issues, and yes, we have complexity. But all of the focus is on the wrong thing. It's not about how much money that you're spending by itself. It's where are you relative to your goal. And so the state of affairs in Arizona, in my view, is that we're focused on the wrong thing. We should set the goals, measure our progress towards the goals by whatever means that we can, then assess how we're doing relative to resources. If we need more resources to attain the goal, then let's get those additional resources. Or if we need new methods or new techniques or new tools. And so the argument, Arizona is making substantial and progress on many fronts. We need to recognize that, honor that. We need to find the laggards. We need to find ways to improve. Now, having said all of that, we have one underlying challenge. The entire trajectory of Arizona will be positively affected when we equalize educational attainment across all ethnic groups. So we have a very large and very robust and high energy Latino community in Arizona, soon to be even a larger percentage of the population. Soon we'll have no majority in the state. All of that's, again, representative of America. And what we haven't done is we haven't found a way to take Latino educational success and move it to national record levels. If we figured out how to do that, all of Arizona's economic challenges will be how do we manage growth at the rate that we're dealing with it? How do we manage success? Right. As opposed to how do we talk about negative things?
When you say that, is it not as many Latinos then going to post-secondary education? Or?
Right now in this county, Maricopa County, we have about a 10% college graduation rate for people of Latino heritage, and we need to get that to about 30%, just to give you an example. And then in terms of a post-secondary certificate, if we set the standard at the level of Texas, which I think is the good standard, 60%, we're running at less than half of that overall. So if we fix that, in a sense, we fix almost everything.
Yeah. One of your programs, I think you call it the New American University, or that's kind of been a focal point.
Right.
Can you talk to us a little bit about that concept of the New American University, right. ASU being the New American University?
Right. So basically, it works like this. So the universities of the past have been very successful. Research universities, non-research colleges, community colleges, other kinds of institutions generally have been successful. But what we need for the future is not what we had in the past. What we need are universities that are high-speed, innovation-oriented, capable of dealing with large degrees of diversity, capable of scaling to the population. So we stopped building institutions a long time ago. And so now we need to scale, we need to innovate, and so forth. So the New American University is one built around 3 principles. The first principle is that we'll be an institution of inclusion versus exclusion. And we won't measure ourselves by who we excluded. We'll measure ourselves by how our students succeed. That's a whole different model. And if you take that model forward, you need a different structure to make that work. Secondly, when we do research, we'll do research not just for the academic benefit of the faculty. We'll do research for the public benefit and the public good, and we'll measure that. And then lastly, in this New American University model, the charter will then does say quite clearly that we'll take responsibility for our community. As opposed to being this separate creature up on the hill and covered by ivy with the wall around the university, don't bother us, that kind of thing. We'll take responsibility for economic outcomes, social outcomes, health and well-being outcomes. Now, we're not solely responsible, but we need to feel like we're responsible for those outcomes. And that then is the charter of this New American University model.
Yeah, it's exciting. You've also moved ASU into a heavy research area,
right.
Emphasis on research. Can you talk a little bit about that concept?
Yeah. So what's interesting? So the U.S. has about 75 or so urban regions, like Phoenix being one of them, where economic competition is really occurring between these urban regions. It's not occurring between the states. Atlanta competes with Dallas. Dallas competes with Houston. Houston competes with Phoenix. Phoenix competes with Denver or Austin. And then likewise, globally, there's about 600 of these places. Right. Those that are the most sophisticated, the most evolved, and have the most robust economic competitiveness, that is, they adjust through economic cycles, are those with the most significant research universities. And so Phoenix has one of these research universities emerging, us, ASU. Seattle has the University of Washington, which is fantastic. Minneapolis has the University of Minnesota. Los Angeles has USC and UCLA. San Francisco has Stanford and UC Berkeley and UC San Francisco. So some have 2 or 3 of these. We are just building one. So what we've been trying to do is to, in a very short time frame, go from sort of a regional non-research university to a world-class research university. Now, we've achieved that.
Right.
And the local population, maybe except for the people in Chandler, I'm sure the people in Chandler get this, but maybe not others. And so we've become that. So let me tell you what that means. And so this year we did just about $450 million a year of research expenditures that we won through thousands of individual projects. So we don't have a medical school and we don't have an ag school. So there's only a handful of schools in the country that have that level of funding with either without a medical school or an ag school. MIT, Carnegie Mellon, Princeton, University of Texas at Austin. We have more non-medical research than USC, than Stanford, than Harvard, than Columbia, than Princeton, than all but a handful of schools in the entire country. And so we are now operating at this unbelievable level. But most research universities operating at our level have much smaller student bodies and much less diverse student bodies. And so in our case, we're able to do really intensive, high-impact research, which benefits this community by launching new businesses. We have new spin-out companies in Chandler and Scottsdale and Phoenix and Tempe, all over the place. Lots of other things that we're doing. We're working with Intel as a main partner on a lot of different fronts. We're working with Orbital Sciences. We're working with Boeing over in Mesa. We're working with Raytheon down in Tucson. Really hundreds, if not thousands of companies. But having said that, what we really are doing is we're evolving an unbelievable research enterprise while still producing many, many thousands of graduates. And so here's our goal.
Right.
So this year we produced about 20,000 graduates. We run one of the largest engineering schools in the world. We did about $450 million of research. So MIT this year did about $700 million of research. They produced about 2,500 graduates or something on that order. So we want to do their level of research and produce 10 times the graduates from a broader cross-section of families at a quarter of the price.
Right.
That's sort of our objective. That Arizona is the place where we can make that happen. Arizona is the fertile soil of innovation support and dynamic energy where we can make those kinds of things happen. So we are a world-class research university, also producing 20,000 graduates a year.
Hold that thought. We're going to reintroduce the show, and we'll be right back.
Okay.
I'm Mayor Jay Tibshraeny. You are watching Chandler Inside and Out. Our guest today is Dr. Michael Crow, the president of Arizona State University. Again, thanks for coming out to Chandler.
Yeah.
And you're talking about the research and the recognition. I do want to make a point I just read recently about ASU tops the list of the most innovative schools in the newly released U.S. News and World Report college rankings for 2016. That's a pretty significant recognition by your fellow colleagues.
Yeah, I think it's very significant for the following reason. So in those U.S. News and World Report rankings, ASU always ends up, when compared against Harvard or Columbia, where I came from, or other schools like that, we always end up in what we call the bottom of the first tier.
Mm-hmm.
So the top of the first tier are those schools with the most elite admission standards, spending the most money per student. Well, there's no way we can ever get to the top of the first tier because we're not going to change our admission standards, and we're not going to spend more money per student because we want to charge less.
Right.
So how could we ever get to the top of that list? So having not gotten to that list, to the top of that list, which is heavily influenced by basically your exclusivity, we love this ranking because this is based on what we've done. Mm-hmm. So the 3 leading innovative universities in the United States in this first national ranking, polling all of the university presidents, provosts, and others around the country, is ASU, Stanford, and MIT. And so we're very happy to be on the top of that list, and that's among hundreds and hundreds of universities.
Yeah, when I think of your administration and the things you've imparted and have meant to ASU, innovation is at the first and foremost of that. So thanks for that.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little too about your global presence. I know you and I in the past have talked about your involvement with Intel and some of their stuff that they're doing in Vietnam, but you have a significant global presence. Maybe chat a little bit about that, because that's pretty impressive to me.
Yeah, so globally, American research universities are known throughout the world as the most elite knowledge producers that humans have ever had the opportunity to construct. And so we now are one of those. But we also work on very intensive educational design and reform. So we've been asked just in the last few years, so how do we avoid more conflict in Southwest Asia? So that's Iraq, Iran, Pakistan, those kinds of, Afghanistan. So we've now just launched a project in the last few weeks in Pakistan where we're helping the American government and the Pakistani government build new kinds of university platforms to change educational outcomes in that part of the world. We're working in India to help produce new teachers. We're working in Vietnam with Intel, the American government, the Vietnamese government, because it turns out that, and folks in Chandler will understand this, I mean, Chandler is a very export-oriented, technology-oriented, very successful community on nearly every level that one can think of. But folks might not know that let me give you a little joke. So people always think that when the aliens come, like they'll blow up the White House and the Empire State Building and other places like that. I don't think they'll blow any of those places up. I think they're going to blow Chandler up. Yeah. And so the reason they're going to blow Chandler up is because we make the most advanced technological things that human beings can make. Yeah. The most advanced micro brains, these chips, orbital rockets. You know, they're going to blow us up over here. So just be ready for
we
that.
got the technology.
Exactly. But how does that work? So the Intel plant here, most advanced in the world, produces these advanced chips. Those chips go to Vietnam, where another plant has been built. I've visited it, and that plant then tests the chips, prepares them for introduction into the technology platform. And so it's a global supply chain and a global labor chain. So Intel says to us, well, we'd like to work with you to help produce better engineering faculty members in Vietnam, to produce better engineers to work in this plant, to help the plant in Intel to be more successful so that its chips can be sold and used around the world in a range of technologies that are emerging. And so we became involved with them. We have an office in Ho Chi Minh City. I'm just using that as one example.
Right.
We've got an American Culture Center in Western China, in Chengdu. We've got sustainability research initiatives going on in China. We've got a business school operation that we operate in Shanghai. Through our purchase of our acquisition of the Thunderbird School of Global Management, we now have offices in Geneva and Moscow. We've got a range of fantastic collaborations going on in Mexico, with Tec de Monterrey in Monterrey, Mexico, and with the Autonomous University of Mexico in Mexico City. We're working in water projects, sustainability projects. So I don't think that people grasp that their local Tempe normal school has grown up to be this global institution. I was just in Europe last week.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And I was in Brussels meeting with the leader of an 80 billion euro initiative for new research. And we're sitting there talking with her. And that's more than $80 billion, the 80 billion euro initiative, talking with her about how we can be a part of it, with our partner, Dublin City University, sitting there right with us. We were in London talking with King's College London and talking with the University of New South Wales about how we might launch a global educational platform. So let me give you a sense of how this works. Set aside Arizona's educational issues. The educational attainment goals for the global population are so great that next year 100 million people more on the planet will want to go to college than there are seats in any form of education for them, including online.
Wow.
100 million more people than there are available spots.
Unbelievable.
And so we're like, let's work on that.
Yeah.
Because if we get more people around the planet educated, if we create more ties to the United States, if we create more friends in, let's say, Brazil. So we're now the third largest recipient of Brazilian students in the United States. We're one of the top 10 recipients of international students overall coming here to ASU. I mean, it's literally unbelievable. So the university is a driver of educational opportunity for our local kids and families, research outcomes for our local industries and success, but also we're a global recruiter, economic development force, and global integrator, all of which I think creates then more economic opportunity for Americans.
Absolutely. And I know just my little involvement in Chandler with it, my companies, Intel, Orbital, all these companies, they need engineers, and you guys have met that challenge and have met it head on and producing good engineers that can not only graduate from ASU, but they can work in the Valley. So.
Well, not just that. So we're now at 17,000 engineering students, and so when you hear people talking in the national media about we can't get anybody to go into engineering, it's actually not true. If you change the design of your schools, empower your faculty into being designers, if you pursue students that are interested in engineering, if you find ways to get over what are called the gateway courses, get people through the calculus and the physics right away where they don't get stumped up right in their freshman year. You make all those things happen, and we're going to produce 2.5 times as many engineers as we produced in 2005. And they're going to be from a broader group of people, more women, more minority students, all becoming engineers, fueling industrial development here and around the country.
Great demand there, isn't there?
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Sustainability, you mentioned it. I know you had a number of initiatives, or maybe some that are in the pipeline. You want to chat just a second about sustainability?
So sustainability to us, it's kind of funny. So there's a lot of people out there that talk about, oh, well, that's all environmentalism or whatever. Sustainability is the development of mechanisms whereby we can generate wealth and economic opportunity and take into consideration all of our actions against the natural resources that we use, so that 10 generations from now, people have the same opportunities that they have today. So how do you protect natural capital, enhance natural capital, while we build the built environment around it. That's what sustainability is to us. We had the first school of sustainability in the country. We now have a global institute of sustainability with, I think we've got 3,000 people involved in that institute, 4,000 people in that institute. It's now the leading institute of its type on the planet, emerging here from Phoenix and greater Phoenix and the metropolitan area. And so from our perspective, we've laid this foundation. Now we're also altering, so we won the National Center for Advanced Solar Technology. We just won the National Center for Biogeotechnical Systems, which is what things will be made of in the future, non-extractive resources, for instance. We run the National Power Systems Grid. We won the National Center for Algae-Based Technology. We won the National Solar and Renewable Energy Grid. These are all unbelievable projects that our faculty have been winning, building for us this sort of intellectual foundation for where will all these solutions come in the future. So sustainability is a really big deal for us. And then back at the ranch, as they say, we're off the grid for half of our daytime electrical needs for the entire university. And soon during the day we'll be off the grid, and after that, day and night will be off the grid, because we're just going to figure out how to live here in the desert in a way where the sun powers everything.
Yeah, and one of the comments I read from one of the students or somebody that was involved with ASU when you got that award from U.S. News and World Report was a gentleman that was involved with some kind of water purification system, and he talked about sustainability, but also the innovation that's going on there at ASU and how it prompted him and helped him develop the product he developed.
Absolutely, and then related to that, in our Biodesign Institute, which is an institute that we funded with some support from the citizens of Arizona through when you were in the legislature, we did Research Infrastructure 1.
Right.
That was one of the biggest things that we ever did, and that allowed us to build the Biodesign Institute. That institute now has in it 10 or 15 research centers and hundreds of people, and one of those research centers is run by a guy named Rolf Haldren, and Rolf is a mega genius, taking biology and physics and engineering and other kinds of tools, and he's figuring out how to clean everything, but in particular water. But not only that, how to use water in ways in which we've never imagined before. And then we have another professor who grew up here in central Arizona named Cody Friesen, who's now figuring out how do you extract water from the atmosphere and how do you use that to make things happen. And we've got other faculty members that are working on all these things, as well as artists and humanists and social scientists thinking about how it's all going to work.
Yeah, good stuff. I'd like to go on, but we've kind of hit the limit on time. But I want to thank you again for all you've done for Arizona State University and for all you've done to help us be a quality city by providing graduate students that our companies can hire and then build even better companies.
Well, let me say, Mayor, you've been a tremendous supporter for all these years, both in the legislature and in this job. The tech shop that we have across the street in the ASU Chandler Innovation Center, I just visited it this morning. The night shift was just leaving. People literally in there, students and businesses building things, making things happen. I mean, it's really unbelievable, and you've been a tremendous supporter in all of that.
Thank you. We'll get you back out here again.
All right.
You've been watching Chandler Inside and Out. I want to thank you for joining us today. Hope you enjoyed the program. I certainly did. Until we see you again, take care and be safe.